What's the secret? We're obsessed with the secret. What's the secret to health? What's the secret to wealth? What's the secret to happiness? What's the secret to leadership? What's the secret to human performance? We all want to know what's the secret. And I'm going to suggest to you that there is no secret. There is no secret. But there is a question. This question, what's important now? And I'm going to suggest that this question is life's most powerful question for two reasons. Number one, because of its simplicity. It's just three words, what's important now, represented by the acronym WIN. But the second reason is because of its diversity, the diverse ways in which we can apply it in our personal life and our professional life. But let me give you a little bit of history on the question, because it's not my question. I borrowed it. About 13 or 14 years ago, I was reading a book called Winning Every Day, written by Lou Holtz, the famous college football coach, probably most famous for his time at Notre Dame University. And about the same time, I was watching some presentations, some videos of presentations that Lou Holtz had done where he talked about this concept, and he talked about win in the book. And it was a question that he sought to instill, a philosophy that he sought to instill in the young men that played football for him at Notre Dame. And he wanted them to ask themselves this question 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 times every single day. What's important now? Because he wanted to give them a tool that they could use to make better decisions, because he realized it was a very difficult, very challenging time in their life. They're 18 to 22 years of age. They're students at a very prestigious university. For the freshmen, it's their first time away from home. They're student athletes playing Division I football. And if you follow Division I football, you understand that it's big, big business. And Lou encouraged these young men to ask themselves this question 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 times every single day so that they would make better decisions. And each of us needs to ask ourselves this question 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 times every day as well. Because every day you make choices. You make choices about what you eat. You make choices about whether or not you work out. You make choices about whether you're going to read or engage in some type of personal growth activity every day. You make choices about the attitude you bring to work and the attitude that you take towards life. You make choices about how you treat people in your life, how you treat your family, how you treat your peers, your coworkers, those that you lead and coach and mentor, how you treat members of your community. You made a choice to come here today, to come to WINx. And at the end of the day, you're going to have a choice when you leave here, and the choice is, what are you going to do with the information? What are you going to do with the challenges and the philosophies and the skills and the questions from the presenters today? What are you going to do to go back and make yourself better, make your agency better, make our profession better? And every day we need to ask ourselves that question. And what's important now is we need to think differently. We need to train differently. We need to prepare differently. We need to behave differently. We need to lead differently, and we need to live differently. And what's important now for us is to understand that the principles that we're going to talk about today, that all 9 of the speakers are going to cover today, are simple, but they're not easy. They're simple, but they are not easy. What's the difference between simple and easy? Simple is lack of complexity. Easy is lack of effort. These things are simple, but they are not easy. They take work, they take effort, and they take work and effort every single day. Every single day we need to show up, and we need to put in the work, and we need to put in the effort. But they're not complex. But we need to do the work, and it's well worth the effort that we're going to put in. And what's important now for us as a profession is to begin to focus on the right D, the right D. There's a huge push across North America for us to focus on disengagement and de-escalation. Disengagement and de-escalation. Those are the wrong Ds. What we need to focus on is decision-making. And we just need to train decision-making. And we need to weave decision-making into our academies and weave decision-making into our in-service training and into everything that we do in our organizations. And one of the things that will help us to make great decisions is great questions. Questions like, what's important now? Questions like, what's the right thing to do? If we just remember those two questions, what's important now and what's the right thing to do? Understanding that doing what's right is not always what's popular. It is not always what's expedient, but it is always what's right. And if we take those two questions and weave them into everything that we do, then we will escalate when it's appropriate. We will de-escalate when it's reasonable. We will engage when it's necessary. We will disengage when it's necessary. We will use good tactics. We will make good decisions. But we need to keep asking those questions. And what's important now for us to understand that we as a profession are not in a crisis yet. We're not in a crisis yet. We're headed that way. We're headed in that direction. And we need to take action before we get there. And one of the things that we need to do is we need to learn to control the narrative. Because right now there's a small group of very vocal special interest groups and people with their own agendas that are controlling the narrative. And their narrative is that we as a profession are a profession of thugs and bullies and murderers and racists who misappropriately apply the law. And nothing could be further from the truth. We are a profession of brave and heroic men and women who show up every day. And they put on their Armor Express armor, and they put on their uniform, and they put on their duty belt, and they pin on their badge, and they go out and they serve their communities heroically and professionally. And so we need to control that narrative. Because if we allow that narrative to continue, then what's going to happen within our profession is we're going to develop this us versus them mentality. And them will become everybody who is not part of the law enforcement profession. And that's a dangerous mentality because the majority of the citizens in our community fully support what you do. They believe in you and they support what you do. The problem is they're the silent majority. They show up en masse at our funerals, and the rest of the year they are silent. But we have taken an oath to serve and protect those people. And what we need to be cautious about is quitting doing our job. If we stop doing our job, if we stop being proactive, if we stop doing vehicle stops, if we stop doing good police work, then they win. If we quit, they win. And they are the small group of very vocal special interest groups and people with their own agendas and the cop haters. And who loses? We lose. We lose as a profession. And our communities lose. And so we need to take action. And we need to understand that law enforcement leaders can no longer hide behind the veil of no comment. When we have a critical incident in our community, we can no longer hide behind that veil of no comment. We need to give information. We need to continue to give information. And we need to stand up and talk about the facts as we know them. And if we're going to release video, then we need to talk about the limitations of video and explain to people, here's some things to consider when you watch the video. Because there are tremendous limitations to video. Video can be a powerful tool. Now, we have companies like Sentinel Solution, and their new video camera system is going to help us to understand the rest of the story, to help us to understand the rest of the story and what actually happens in these dynamic deadly force encounters. But we need to step behind that veil of no comment. And what's important now is that we need to understand that when we screw up, we need to stand up, own up, admit to what we screwed up, learn from the experience, and move on better off of the experience. And we are going to screw up. We are a profession of human beings. And as human beings, we're going to make mistakes and we're going to screw up. But when we screw up, we need to stand up and we need to own up. And as a profession of human beings, we're going to make mistakes. Every profession in the world has people in that profession that should not be there. Either they got through the hiring process somehow, or sometime during their career they went down a wrong path. And we need to address those things. We need to address inappropriate behavior. We can no longer ignore. We should never have ignored, but we cannot ignore inappropriate behavior because ignored behavior is condoned behavior. And we cannot ignore or condone inappropriate behavior. But when we screw up, let's stand up. Let's own up, let's admit to it, and let's move on better off of the experience. What's important now for us as a profession is we develop a culture of leadership, a culture of leadership. Too often right now what we have in agencies is we have leadership courses. And you go to that course and you tick off the box and you say, I took this course, and it allows you to get promoted or allows you to get that specialty unit transfer. But it's just a course. What we need is a culture of leadership. And when it's a culture, then that means that we start teaching leadership at the foundational levels of the organization, at the patrol officer, the deputy, the trooper, the constable level. And we teach leadership at all levels of the organization. And we have a consistent language, and it might be based around those questions, what's important now and what's the right thing to do. But we have a consistent language that we share, and we all speak the same language. And we ask those critical questions in training and in our tactics and in our budget discussions and around the executive table. But we need to create cultures of leadership. It's not enough just to have leadership courses. And part of that culture of leadership is when we understand as leaders that it's not about us. It's easy to think that it's about us. And especially if you have rank or you have position or you have title in your organization. But leadership is never about rank, position, or title. It's never about rank, position, or title. Those things put you in a leadership position, but they do not make you a leader. And great leaders understand that it's not about you. It's about the people that you serve and the people that you have the privilege to lead. And then we follow the advice from Nancy Duarte, and we make those people the heroes. And our job is to be the wise and humble mentors, but to make the people that we lead and the people that we serve the heroes. And what's important now is for us to be hungry and humble, hungry for new ideas, different ways of thinking, different ways of leading, different ways of training. And that's why you're here. That's why you're at WINx, because you're hungry for that information. And we need to stay hungry, but we also need to remain humble. And the great leaders understand the importance of humility as leaders. But we need to develop these cultures of leadership. And what's important now is we understand the power of relationships, starting with our relationships at home. We need to make family a priority throughout our career. Too often what happens is family gets bumped down the list of priorities. And we've all seen the consequences of that in law enforcement careers. But we need to make family a priority and look after that relationship. And then we need to grow those relationships within our agencies, because we have a culture where we have a tendency to eat our own. And we need to stop that and step away and develop relationships within our agencies. Relationships between law enforcement agencies, between public safety agencies, between public service agencies, and relationships with the community. Relationships that are built on respect and trust and integrity and honesty and courage. And those relationships take time, and they take work, and they take effort. And they take time, and they take work, and they take effort on a consistent basis. And one of the keys to those great relationships is to change our mindset and to see people as people. And when we do that, then we can develop and grow and maintain those great relationships. And what's important now for us is that as a profession, we acknowledge that wellness is an officer safety issue. Wellness is an officer safety issue. The single biggest killer of law enforcement officers in North America is law enforcement officers in North America taking their own life. And we need to address that. We need to talk about that. And if you look at the work, Dr. Jonathan Scheinberg out of Texas, who's a cardiologist and a reserve officer with Cedar Park, Texas Police Department, John suggests that if we were to extend data collection of line-of-duty deaths over a 24-hour period and collect the number of heart attack deaths that we have when officers are on 2 hours after their shift, 6 hours after their shift, or on their days off, because of the 110 line-of-duty deaths in this country so far this year, 17 of them are heart attacks. He suggests that if we collected that data over a 24-hour period, that heart attacks would be one of the top 2 leading killers of law enforcement officers. And we need to look at the work of Dr. Brian Villa and Dr. Charles Samuels on fatigue and sleep deprivation in our profession, because we're a profession of people that are continually in a state of sleep debt. And that sleep debt is directly linked to the cardiac issues, directly linked to our weight issues, directly linked to our emotional issues, directly linked to our type diabetes issues. And we need to embrace the philosophy that wellness is an officer safety issue. And what's important now is that we celebrate. We celebrate the selfless and heroic acts of the men and women of law enforcement. We have millions of contacts with citizens around North America every year. And every year there are countless selfless acts that are committed by law enforcement professionals. And we need to celebrate those. Police One does a great job in their column, The Upbeat, of celebrating those selfless acts and sharing that message. But we all need to get the word out. We need to celebrate heroes, the heroes in our profession. Heroes like Lieutenant Brian Murphy, who's here today, and the other heroes that are in this room, and the heroes in our profession. We need to celebrate the leaders and the thought leaders and the teachers and the trainers that have thought differently all along. People like Chuck Remsburg, who's here, whose work was cutting edge in law enforcement and getting us to think differently about officer safety training and understand the importance of mental preparation and mental conditioning. And he continues to be a thought leader in our field. And we need to celebrate people like the Davis family. Rich and Matt Davis from Armor Express, who over the last 4 decades, their family has been involved in inspiring law enforcement officers to wear their body armor, because body armor saves lives. And body armor and the Davis family perhaps have saved more lives than any other single tool or any other single group of people. But we need to celebrate, and we're not good at that in our profession. We need to understand that training is an investment. Training is an investment. It's too easy to think about training as just another line item in the budget. And when we think about training as a line item in the budget, it's easy to cut that line item. And too often, training is the first thing to go when we have budgetary issues or budgetary problems or restrictions. But we need to understand that training is an investment. Training is an investment in yourself. Training is an investment in your officers. Training is an investment in your agency. Training is an investment in our profession. Training is an investment in our communities. And a return on investment for good training is huge. But there's a price to pay if we're going to cut training. There's a price to pay. And we're going to pay that price for years down the road, for years down the road. So we need to understand that training is an investment in all of us and in our profession. And what's important now is that we find a way to embrace the suck. Because you know what? It sucks that you have to work shift work and miss events with your family. It sucks that there are people out there that want to hurt you and want to kill you simply because of the uniform that you wear and that you have chosen to serve your communities as law enforcement professionals. It sucks that there are university football coaches in this country that make more than everybody in this room combined will make over the next 3 to 5 years. But we need to find a way to embrace the suck and find the good. Because if we do not embrace the suck, then the suck will embrace you. And when the suck embraces you, you will become one of those whining, sniveling malcontents that we all have in our agency. And the only thing worse than whining, sniveling malcontents is when they're in a leadership position. So we need to find a way to embrace the suck and find the good. And it's not easy. But if we ask ourselves what's important now, it will help. And what's important now is that we follow the advice of the late Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn used to say, don't wish it was easier, wish you were better. Don't wish it was easier, wish you were better. But wishing is not enough. Wishing is not enough. We need to take action. And what you need to do today is you need to take notes and you need to write down your key takeaways and your aha moments from every speaker and an action item for every one of the 9 speakers. And what you need to do is engage in discussion and dialogue and debate with the speakers and with your fellow law enforcement professionals that are here today. And you need to make connections. Reach out and make connections with people you don't know, people that you have never met before, so that you have people that you can continue the discussion and the dialogue and the debate with. And now more than ever, we need to embrace life's most powerful question. What's important now? And we need to think differently, train differently, prepare differently, behave differently, lead differently, and live differently. Thank you.
Hi, this is Roy Bethke from the Virtus Group and co-founder of WINx. I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and I'm hopeful that you found it valuable. Our goal with WINx is to encourage each of us in the profession to think, train, prepare, behave, lead, and live differently. For that to happen, we need your help. If you found the video helpful in any way, please take a moment to share it. You can do that on social media, especially Facebook and Twitter, on the internet, or within your network of like-minded people. Also, we have similar videos available from all of our events. You'll find them posted on the Virtus Group YouTube page. We think the videos are a great tool for learning, but feedback has told us that there is nothing better than being at a WINx event in person. 9 presenters, 18 minutes each, designed to inspire and engage the audience. To get more information about our next WINx event, including location, cost, and registration, please visit www.experiencewinx.com. You can also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/experiencewinx or on Twitter at AskWinx. Until next time, be safe and remember life's most powerful question: what's important now? Thank you.